Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast. I am your host, the Menopause Queen, Lisa R. Triggs, best-selling author, speaker. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have a special guest with me. Her name is Anne-Cecile, and she is the founder of BFF Media Lounge and the author of Reboot Your Story. Welcome, Anne-Cecile. Thank you so much for joining me today. So please tell us, who is Anne-Cecile and what made you decide to start BF Media Lounge?
Yes, my name is Anne-Cecile. It came to a point after those years of hard struggle that I thought, what do I do? Do I actually try another way to make this, or do I give up? So I thought, how about like making it in a way that, because to make a movie can take like a few years, it's a complicated process. So I thought, how about engaging with the audience from the start? Find something in common and taking them on a journey. Because for me, I know some people, they're like, oh, I love when one day I get an Oscar, like they see themselves on the red carpet or whatever. For me, I don't really, if they give me one, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to be honest, but at the same time, it was always about the audience, because it's what films did to me. You can have a week with a horrible week, and then you can watch a rom-com, something fun, and then it makes you feel good, or you can relate to the characters. It can be such an amazing experience. And so I was like, let's talk to my audience. So how am I going to do this? So as I was going through this process of thinking, what can I do with this short film? I had all these ideas, and all of a sudden, anxiety happened overnight. I was petrified. It was completely, my ego was wiped. I said like destruction of the ego, but also utter fear. I didn't know who I was anymore, and out of nowhere. And I thought, what is this? So I went to the doctor. They want to give you pills. I said, I don't want to take pills. And I felt like, anyway, I was in struggle for a whole year, and then it became about something else, because it became about getting out of that, because, So, and then I found out there was perimenopause. A year later, there could be a symptom of perimenopause. So that journey after that was about, trying to get out of that. This is where Reboot Your Story came out of that journey, and then changing my own narratives. This is why it was Rebooting Your Story, because I was like, how can I find? So there's many tools I found. Neuroscience is a big one. Changing my narrative, but also thinking, what are my thoughts right now? Why? Because I had a poverty mindset, as it's very typical of creators, that creatives, because we're not supposed to do it for money, which is such a ridiculous thing to think. But oftentimes, oh, I don't do it for the money. I just want my films on the screen, and I had all of that in my mind, and I thought, okay, so now I want to do this project, and it will be about spreading positivity. And because the other thing I found is, like, not only wasn't I was so happy with my own life, but I wasn't happy with the world we were living in either. I just thought, I don't like the narratives of this world. So I can start the narrative, and we can do it together. So when I started doing the company, I think I'll do the book, because the book is about rebooting our own narratives. First, it starts with us, right? And then the film. So now I'm going to go create the first short film for the company, which is about sex and shame, called The Penis Conundrum. And obviously, again, it's a comedy, where it's not a very like a high drama with a name like that. And then with the company as well, about spreading positivity, but we champion women and positive masculinity, because I felt also that to change the narratives, it's because we live in a society, a patriarchal society. I'm not teaching anyone about that, but it's like a bird flying with just one wing, the masculine one. And then often what we do to counteract this, we try to fly with just the feminine one. And it's very rare that we have that balance. So the masculine side, positive masculinity, was a way for us, women, to heal our own masculinity, and for men also to get on board later. And this is why also the mascot is an eggplant called Boris, because it was a way to open that door. So it's for women, but open that door as well to heal all of that. It's a new narrative. So for new narratives, we need a new premise. And the premise is joy, and the premise is all of that. So basically, that's what I'm doing.
I think it's phenomenal, and I think it's hilarious. It's widely needed. I've done an episode before on lighten up. We need to lighten up, because I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of taking everything so seriously, right? But I think that there are a lot of people out there, influence, all that kind of stuff, that are bringing the humor in, and it's much needed. But I think where you're going with it is amazing as well, because the intimacy part is a big problem. I've heard of women, leaving the relationship just because they didn't want to be bothered anymore. I mean, which that's sad. But anyway, and to me, there's had to be more going, there must have been more than just that going on. But anyway, tell me more about this penis conundrum.
So, I mean, we are about changing narratives, and it's strange. It's funny you talk about like what are the narratives, because one of the reasons we are like having to put boundaries is because of the narratives of society. This was what I talk about in the book, because for me it was about changing the narratives. Like, okay, I always say, what kind of narratives do we have that's family ones, but also like in the world, we're supposed to look after the children. I mean, I remember like, once I was at a party and there was like just two girls and they were asking the women to look after the kids, even though we didn't know the people, it's just that kind of thing. So, so basically, the idea with this short is not to be making films about sex all the time. It's just I wanted to have one first project that was, something impactful that you could remember with a title like that, and but also it's truly something that I felt in myself. But it was because the idea is like, when one day you feel that way, and then or you look at, because the idea is this woman is a bit uptight and she looks at the outline of her colleague's penis through his trousers, and it's a large penis and she doesn't know where to look. And I'm thinking, well, this kind of moment, of embarrassment that we could experience. So the idea is like to look at what are the narratives around that and how can we heal from that. So the idea is like, we're going to release it in a YouTube live, and we want to get a million views because we want to get an audience, but also we want to start a conversation after that, after a huge, because it's an absurdist comedy. So you're going to laugh, you're going to laugh big time, but there's something there, because after the second scene is with a boyfriend, which doesn't dare say what she actually wants, because what could be when you're in a relationship for a long time, you can be so used to each other. And maybe you're thinking, oh, if I ask for this, would I be perceived in a certain way? Or, I mean, we don't call it because we have to carry the shame, like women, it's like we're either the virgin, the saint, or the crazy one, and then if you're a menopausal woman, you're a witch, right? But that's where the origin of the witch is a menopausal woman. Because why? Because the menopausal woman, she's had the estrogen veil lifted over, and she's a threat to men. So also she's an ugly, scary woman who eats children, because basically that's what they were saying about women. But look at the witches that we are. Aren't we beautiful? I think we're absolutely stunning. So I completely disagree with that. But all these types of narrative is a way to go like, oh, this is not me. It's the environment, and we are together enjoying this conversation. And also, I also felt that it was for women, because we've seen many comedies about boobs, like bouncing boobs or whatever. The other thing about doing this film, which was interesting, is the reaction I got from some men. And they were like, are you sure you want to do a film about that? Your first film, you're not going to get funding, people are going to call you the penis girl, And I was like, oh, so there is definitely something about it. If I'm getting this type of pushback, or like you're going to be labeled a certain way. And I'm thinking, so there is definitely something. And I think if we could continue to have those comedies, because the idea is to entertain, because comedy is such an amazing thing in the world, to see how we all fail, how we're funny in so many ways. We all have our funny side, but at the same time to have this little conversation and say, oh yes, it doesn't have to be that way.
A lot of women don't. They don't have the conversations, and I think that's part of the problem. We don't even confide with, and this is honest to God truth, only the last little while that I even started talking to my sisters about it, kind of thing. And we need to speak up more, girlfriends, whatever. Like we're keeping too much of it to ourselves. I think the last couple of years, with everybody being more encouraging everybody to be able to speak up and open, and it is helping, because one thing for sure is women definitely to advocate for themselves.
The other thing about this book that is, it's funny because you talked about women having to advocate for themselves in healthcare. I talk about that as well. But there's also another thing that is special about this book is that's the first self-help book that uses AI threads based on personal wounds. So I will explain what it is, because as screenwriter and writers, we build characters based on their personal wound. And the personal wound is basically our trauma from childhood, like which you've talked about yourself before. And this is how we build interesting characters, because then we can empathize and then not just someone just smiling, on the screen. So when I was going through this process, my personal wound obviously I had to examine that more. And it was at the time around 2022 when ChatGPT came out. I started to study that a little bit, and then all the stuff they could do. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to see if we do a set of prompts to see if it could incorporate the whole of my personal wound, so like the whole of it, you write down all of it. And then it did. So basically I have this prompt that I put in a book, which is not as a way of a cop out. For example, if tomorrow you're like, my tummy hurts, I'm having, oftentimes with stress is IBS that we have women or something, or I'm really angry about something. That's what happened to me recently, was someone talking about a family member going through something. And you think, I'm extra angry about this, or I am extra something. So the idea is to go in there and like, why is it with my personal wound that could be triggering this? And then and I did one for my husband as well, because he was coming to me with all these problems. I'm going to create like a prompt for you and then can have a chat with ChatGPT about it. But anyway, but the idea of that is that initially you tend to use it a bit because because it comes up, because it's something that comes, and like, even though you carry your personal wound or your trauma, you're not aware exactly how it presents, and there's so much going on. It's not just one thing in your trauma, right? So with that, it's like it was helping me, and it's helped me do that. And over time, I find that I'm not using it as much, or very little now. So it's not like a tool that's like, oh, you go back all the time because you feel insecure. It's really one to say, okay, oh, I had this conversation before with that particular trigger. So I'm really proud of that one, because it really helped me like I said, the work, you have to do it. And that's why there's 6 tools, 6 elements in it, that the rewiring your brain and stuff. But this one is also very good, because sometimes we feel alone and we're not, or you could be really jealous about someone. Like, why is it bothering me so much? And oftentimes it's to do with that. And it helped me as well heal in a sense of like, not feeling so bad about those feelings. Like, am I this angry person? Am I this jealous person? I don't want a bitter person. I don't want to be any of these people. And when I know it's because of the trauma, I'm like, oh God, okay, I can cuddle my younger self. So yes.
Anger, yes. I went through a very angry period. Like, and my husband would say, why are you so angry? All the time. And I believed it was circumstantial. Believed it was what's going on, stress I was under at the time. And now I believe it was both. Because of where I was, in my menopause journey, having that stuff go on amplified that anger. You know what I mean? Like, I was not a happy camper whatsoever. Like, um, fly off the handle and just in counseling sessions and the whole bit, I yelling. But then again, part of me, I think, needed to do that because I hadn't done that. I was trying to be cooperative and not accommodating, but what do you call it? Compromising and things like that. And it's like, I finally realized, no, I don't want to have to compromise. And I think that's one of the things that women come to or need to realize, that it's okay to come to when we reach this time of life. We're not being bitches, or we might be, but there's a reason for it. You know what I mean? We're not just doing, we're standing up and we're saying, you know what, this is not okay anymore. I don't want to have to deal with this anymore. Right. So the shift either has to come from you or from me or from whatever. So we need to talk about this more. Right.
Yeah, and you and I had this conversation before about how in Japan they call menopause a second spring. I think it's also because of that. It's another way of like highlighting what we need to heal. And I think also for the ladies out there, I always look at the positive because that's my mission. But it means us women, we get the opportunity to heal. Well, men don't get that opportunity because they don't get pushed that way. And I think it's a lovely opportunity for us because we may be frustrated by it, but really it's a great opportunity for us women to evolve. That's why we're so amazing as women.
I totally agree. And that's a good point that you just made. The women, we're the ones that end up doing the work. And I've been very lucky. My husband has, worked with me. We've had these very, very tough conversations, right? And processed it and worked through it and all that kind of stuff. But not everybody is that lucky. And we have to remember that part of this journey is putting ourselves first and loving yourself enough to make the decisions that you need to make, for the benefit of not only your physical, but your mental health.
Yes, I think a lot of it is again the narratives of like we as women need to look after everyone because it's our duty. It's expected of us. And I think comes menopause, we're thinking why. I feel very much our generation was very much about, we need to find a boyfriend. It was very centered around men. And I think the new generation, even now ourselves, we don't feel that way anymore. And someone was saying the other day, a good man is like a mediocre woman. Funny, but because of that, they don't get the opportunity. They don't get opportunity to talk with their friends, their male friends about what we do. Like this, having this type of conversations is quite rare with men. And that's why my husband is like you, I'm having this conversation, but sometimes thinking like, it would be great for you to have this conversation with other men. And sometimes it's heavy for us as well because we're like, so yes, because of
Because
that.
why do we have to tell them, right? Like, why do we have to tell them, hey, maybe you should read up on this? But, and again, I'm actually really fortunate that way. My husband is a big researcher. He's researched some stuff and told me, but I'm really lucky in that way. It sounds like you are too. But these are conversations that we need to be having. And I think the important thing is, women need to have them, but we all need to encourage the men to be open to receiving it, open to having it, because I have encountered, I don't know if you have, but some men of a little bit of a certain age, sometimes they're like, oh, don't know anything about menopause and don't want to know. And I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I'm not, your partner.
I agree. And I think this is why also there are so many divorces around that time because women start thinking, well, why bother?
And so do the men, right? And they thinking, she's just a bitch, and because the root of it is that from my own experience, um, the men just still care about the sex, the fact that they're not getting it, and you don't want to have it, and all, you know what I mean? The lack of sex and the lack of drive and all this kind of stuff, right? Kind of we as women, unfortunately, I guess in some cases, not all, need to find a way to get past that and, hello, you know, there's more about, or hopefully our relationship is more, than just this. To me, I've seen them, that's the focus that seems to be in the first place they go is she just never wants to have sex anymore, right? Kind of thing. And there is so much more to it than that.
And not only that, but it's a shortcut to their own behavior because a lot of the time for women, the reason we don't want to have sex with them at some point is because they've been a pain in the bum, right? So maybe it's up to them to have an attitude and find ways to approach us, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a conversation I've had. It's like, well, you know, maybe you need to woo me a little more, or you show let's meet in the middle here. You show some support, kind of thing. That goes a long way with a woman, right? So when is the penis conundrum coming out? It's later this year.
Well, basically, before coming out, we're going to need support. So we're going to start a crowdfunding campaign on the 24th of February. So if anyone wants to support us and want to get the film made, and we actually going to do a campaign like to 200 we need 200 women to give $100 over 1 month to get the film made. So we are only like looking at women to make that because it's for us.
Aside from this project in your book, you chose the hormone replacement therapy route. Walk me through that. What was that like, making that decision, just so that women are aware, of the options?
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation before, but first of all, I am not a doctor, and I don't want to tell women what to do. And I think, like, we both agree that no one should tell women what to do. But the journey I've had is interesting because I think it's a journey for many women that first of all, the health environment is very biased against women. I think for me, I think I was a bit of a crowd pleaser, sort of pleasing person. I mean, I didn't want to have confrontations. I mean, I had a very volatile mother, and my dad was very much like, oh, let's get out of her way, And so I never knew how to deal with that and those type of personalities. So if I have to have a difficult conversation, I mean, before, I'm getting much better at this now. But it would just be horrifying to me, incredibly scary. So when I entered this very desperate situation, that's the only way I can describe it, because I never had anxiety before. Actually, I didn't know what that was. But it was terrified the whole day. This is ridiculous. So going to the doctors and going to a gynecologist and say, oh, I'm not feeling well. And then be like, well, it's part of a woman's life. And like, okay, sure, like I didn't want to bother. And so I went one and I thought, okay, they're not giving me what I need. So then to another one. And so it was about like overcoming this people pleasing sort of side of myself. And then in the end, as well, with the third one, and I said, oh, maybe I should ask about HRT, not because I thought it was necessarily the solution, but because I was desperate. It's hearing it. And then when the third one, because the two before were like, no, and and they made me feel guilty about it. The third one was like, but don't you think maybe you should see, like, for that side, like a therapist or something? And I was about to say, okay. And I was like, no, I need to try this. So for me, it was really overcoming like decades of like people pleasing and being scared of big personalities and people telling me no, and also thinking, am I worthy of whatever, their attention or whatever, And so that's why I think I said, like, advocating for ourselves. And if sometimes we're not strong enough to do it, I put in the book as well, bring your friends, bring someone with you, because sometimes we can wobble, in front of a doctor thinking, oh, yes, you're right, I'm being too difficult, or and also about saying, like, we tend to minimize perhaps our symptoms sometimes. So, and doctors, and it's, yes, there is a bias, which was I experienced, but also doctors only have about 15 minutes with each patient. So you are basically number 13 that day, I don't know. So unless we're very clear what we need, they're not going to be able to listen to our symptoms. So what I do is, like, I do a bit of a rehearsal before. It's like, what do I want to achieve in this session with the doctor? What do I need to say? And he needs or she needs to understand this. And by the time I come out, this is the result, And I know it may seem silly saying that, but for someone who's lived that, I mean, I think women can relate. Many women can relate, but it was going through that, and so this is what I've learned, I think, and it's definitely narrative.
Oh, I totally get it. I nowadays, I mean, even my own family doctor, it takes almost a month to get in to see her. So I go in with a list. This is what I'm going to cover off in this visit. You give them one reason, and I hate that they ask you, "What's your reason?" I don't mean to mean to be biatchy with the nurses sometimes, but I'm like, I'm here to talk to the doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I said with the reason for my visit, is personal. I've discussed mental health. I think one of the important things we as women is to exercise the different options. I did use hormone replacement therapy for 2 years, and it was earlier on, and I still do find it funny that actually the symptoms were after, like, the symptoms were post-menopausal for me. Like after, like most of it, like the most worst symptoms were postmenopausal after that 1 year period or whatever, that is supposed to be menopause, where once we stop having our cycle for 1 year, basically that period is menopause, right? Then after that, you're considered postmenopause. So I'm like, and what man decided this? What man decided that menopause was that period, but postmenopause is the rest of it? Well, postmenopause is when I've had all the symptoms. For me, anyway, it was postmenopausal. I had most of the difficulties. I during the actual menopause phase, that 1 year, 18 months or whatever, right? That you're going without. That's when I saw the boost. That's when I saw the increase, my libido increased. And then once it was postmenopausal, the year or whatever was it, and then all the other, stress, life stress, that's when the symptoms really, that's when the hot flashes really took off, and the depression, and so forth. The choices are out there, right? To find, what's available to us. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about you, what you do, or your journey, anything?
I suppose my journey is interesting in the sense that my own narratives of living in France in the early 20 and decided to come to the UK because I wanted to be bilingual. I wanted to learn English and then be because I was fascinated by the country and language and the people. And because of home and the difficulty at home, I left and basically started from scratch at the bottom there, living working in a pub and doing all this. And it was incredibly challenging, but I think what I was living at home was even more challenging. So it was a way. I think it might be the story of many immigrants, when they go somewhere as well, like of having some backstory, people don't always think about sometimes. But it was a love that drove me there. But I think the push was basically the
You're
situation I
leaving
had.
something behind, right? You're leaving
Yeah.
because you need to leave. You need to shut it. You need to release it. You need to leave it behind. Sometimes in a different country. Yeah. Right?
Sometimes or a different, I don't know, it could be a different man, but and
Yeah.
there was like formative years and learning about. I wanted to be an actress to start with, so I studied acting, and but I hope. I mean, I have a lot of love for actors because it's such an incredibly difficult job. Imagine like going to sort of like every auditions and being told, "Oh, you're rubbish." It basically feels so personal. And I couldn't handle that. So I love actors for that because I think they're just amazing. But for me, it was like, I just felt like I didn't want to be picked. I felt like, oh, well, waiting to be picked. I felt very much like in a Jane Austen sort of novel. And so I thought, now I'm going to write story because I thought, oh, you could do screenwriting. And so this is when I started to write and loving it. And turns out that being a screenwriter is the same thing. You still have to wait for someone to make your movie and you still have to be picked somehow. So this is why now I'm the picker. I'm picking
Yep.
myself.
Yep. Get that?
So,
Let's just start our own.
and then so I stayed in the UK for 22 years. And then it came to a point where I was thinking like it was in London. London was so big and taking the underground places. I don't know. And then my husband and I went to Barcelona on a holiday. And we were like, oh, it's like London, but smaller, sunnier. And, you could walk everywhere and much more chilled. And we like, because, it was very sort of like very creative. And I need to be a place that's cosmopolitan and creative. That's important. And we're like, shall we move here? And we're like, we don't speak Spanish. So what are we going to do? And then we're like, oh yeah, that's going to be complicated. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, my husband received a job offer. Like, so someone asking like, for a place in Barcelona. And we said, well, I don't speak Spanish. So he said, well, there are some international sort of companies there, so you could work there. And he said, oh, so that could be an option. So he found a job there, here, rather, where we are now. And I followed, and then I learned Spanish for 3 months straight. I was like, I'm going to be doing well in Spanish 3 months straight. Like it was, I remember I was really young student of 20 and I was 45 and I was like, oh my God, this is hard to go back to school. And then for 4 hours every day and in the afternoon I was revising and then the last
Because
fourth
your
month,
memory is not the same, right? And your focus, so you're like in menopause,
yeah.
your
And also,
language. So
that's
kudos.
right. It's like it was like the young girls, they were like partying and then coming. It's like, oh, remember everything. But in the end, because I worked so hard, so the last month I studied and I passed the test and I got because I wanted to have a diploma at the end and I became a intermediate in Spanish and I was really pleased because I did the best in my class because I actually studied and not partied like the rest of them. So yes, so that's what I did, and then yeah, that's fun.
There are some similarities with, from my understanding, Portuguese, French, and Spanish.
Correct. They're Latin languages, and I thought in my sort of in my head, oh well, that's gonna be easy. And I worked so hard. It was so hard to learn. I was like, oh God, I really, yeah, it was hard. But I'm so proud of it's one of those things I think as women, and I hope women can think also like my message. I mean, you are an example of that yourself, that we can start and we can do project all the time. Like there's no age. I mean, I'm a founder of this company now. Do you know what is crazy about it? Is like there's no man doing that. What I'm doing right now, there's no man or woman doing it in my 50s. It's like when you think about it. And also not only that, but naturally, I love writing in my pajamas at home. I don't want to be exposed, talking to people and being on social media, but I have to now. And I'm doing it. And I think, but I'm far from alone in doing that. And you are on a podcast doing this. It's amazing. But I think this is the message for us women to just not feel like, oh yeah, now I'm getting older, do people want to hear about what I have to say? Do people want to know about me? Oh, is it worth doing something? And this is what keeps us alive. And this is incredibly challenging for me to do this. I mean, I had to shoot like a trailer for the short film, for the crowdfunding we're doing on Monday. And then I remember because I was listening to all that we were shooting. At some point I was like, I'm so hungry because I was so nervous. I hadn't eaten. So I was like, I'm so hungry. I was like, but it's pushing myself, but it's also good because I know why I'm doing it. I really believe in it. And I think because that's the sixth element of my book about finding purpose. Because I think also, like I say, I want to create this, but it's going to be huge. It's going to ask so much of me that's so unusual for me. I mean, what's the point? How can I sustain it? And the mission is what sustains me. I don't feel it's about me anymore. When I'm passionate, I talk to you back. This is great, ladies. We can do this. And this is what excites me. But I think for us ladies, sometimes, oh my God, do people want to see me, hear about me? But you have something to share. Like you have, and I think the other thing as well that I've learned, and as well for sure, that in the history of humanity, there's never been anyone like you, and there will never be anyone like you again. So we need your light and perspective, And I feel oftentimes at the time where we have all the wisdom, all the beauty of what we learn, we tend to think, oh, do we want to hide that light? No, it's time to share that light. And look at, I mean, if ladies watching, that's two wonderful ladies here doing it, and you can be that woman too. That's really the message, because we have so much to share.
I totally agree. And I think it's beautiful because, sure, there are some people that would say, well, why would you want to tell your story, tell your private kind of thing? Well, hopefully, because by telling my story and putting myself out there, it will help somebody else, right? That's the whole mission. And you're right. There are some days you start second guessing yourself, and then that's where, for me anywhere, where the reality of my work really steps in to say, okay, get out of, you're on a mission here. Like, I enjoy every minute of this process, putting this tiara on and, getting on and talking with, thank you so much. Being able to share my story and get other people's stories and sharing them. And I'm having people approach me now to come and be on this podcast and do an interview and stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, you know what? I am making an impact. I am reaching I am reaching people, bit by bit by bit. And then that's encouraging. And then that's the reason for it. And not to get caught up. I mean, you're making money would be great. but just, I know it will come. And that's part of the whole work is just to trust what you're doing.
To trust the process. But I think as women as well, like make money is super important. I remember my friend, she was, oh, if I make enough, we'll be enough. No, we need to make a lot of money. And I tell you why. Because we need to change the world. So it's money is like the vehicle for that. I was thinking like I have this idea of being this empire. Like we have this huge, like, we can have, make our films because I want to make like films and stuff. And I'm thinking all that money is not going to make to be a billionaire on a yacht. Is really to spend in what I'm going to do with $1 billion or whatever. Who cares? I mean, yeah, all the stuff that needs doing, financing the project that are amazing out there or whatever. It's because as women, we need, because it's better in our hands. Look at the hands it's in. And I mean, I don't want to criticize or anything, but the men who own the big company, they tend to, hog that money. So in our hands as women, this is another reason why we need to be successful as women, because of the change. Look, what can Lisa do with all that money? So much, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like my dream is actually to have a a community that focuses on the positive side of this time of life instead of the negative. I set it up. It's like you get one chance, right? You come in, you unload it. What's going on? What are you suffering from? Whatever. Um, and then, okay, now you've shed all that, release it. Now let's move forward with it. So this is me. I am putting myself out there. You know what I mean? It's on purpose because this is how important it is. What we're doing and being those voices. And continuing the conversations. But thank you so much. I think this has been such an important conversation, and we definitely need to stay in touch. And I want to know, to be able to help promote it. I want to know what I can do to help, with this project that you're working on with this. And we will put the links to where to find your book, right? Where to find your book, and more about you, your website, all that kind of stuff.
And follow us on social media. We need
Yes,
more women following us.
yes.
And
Have I found you? I think I found you. I think I have you on LinkedIn. I got to check wherever.
yeah, and also Instagram, we're everywhere. And we are also turning Boris the eggplant into a plushie. So we're going to take him on little adventures on social media. He's going to come. I want to take him to Paris. I wanted to take him to different places. One of the reasons, I mean, obviously, because he wanted to represent the positive masculinity, but in a way that is sort of neutral, because no one is going to be upset with a mascot. That was one thing. But also the idea is I didn't necessarily want to be the face of the company or the face of BFF Media Lounge, because I felt that it was such a big idea, a big mission that I didn't want to be, and also I didn't necessarily felt comfortable. So yes, I have like this sort of plushy thing, and also many people apparently it's something very successful at the moment that people are using plushies and things also, because it's a way to feel a bit better sometimes, like I said, it's going to be a comfort vegetable. So I had this idea of doing this podcast. I don't know if I get, when you speak, I pass on the eggplant to someone, because it's the comfort thing. At the beginning of the year, I was, because of the world situation, I wondered a lot about how the message that we should talk about this year, because what do people want? Because we don't want to be, we're super cheerful, pretending nothing, everything is wonderful, because it would be a mistake. But I didn't want to be loud either. So, so this is the year with because we're a comedy account as well. It's the year when the Lulu becomes true Lulu. Because if you wire around and think, the way, because I'm thinking we live in narratives and think, like the world is horrible, and I'm thinking, but that's just a Delulu. A form of Delulu, because it doesn't have to be that way, So I'm thinking, if we're going to choose Delulu, because for example, like stuff like countries, like I'm thinking, we accept the idea of countries now, but what is it? Is it one day there's Bob, drew a sort of like invisible line in the sand. Is that this is my country now? And then people are like, Bob is crazy. And over time, people are like, oh yeah, Bob is right. When you think about it, if an alien came tomorrow, we'd be like, but that's an invisible line. So, but we believe we die. So I think if we do believe in those narratives, how about ones that make us feel good about ourselves, make us love each other, makes us excited about life? That's what. So Delulu to Trululu, that's the idea, and that's the message of hope. And the other thing I wanted to, if you allow me to finish on that, if you don't mind, about hope, because in case ladies listening were in the same situation I was in when I was really desperate with my anxiety. And for 3 years, it was darkness, horrible. I was so desperate. And then one day, I had ice cream and somewhere, and then I thought, that ice cream tastes so good. And I realized in the 3.5 years, it was the only thing I had enjoyed. And then that lasted 10 minutes, and then the light went. That's it. It was gone. But it was like a bit of light, tiny bit of light. And I was like, if there was one bit of light, I can have more. And that's my message. If you find yourself so desperate, and then you can find that one bit of light, or try and find it. And every day your brain is concentrating on that. And more light will come. So that's my message of hope. And in the world we live in as well, if you feel the same way, there's a bit of light. That conversation is light, right? If you're thinking, there's 2 women doing something, that's light. And you can have more and more of that in our lives. Small goals every day. Enjoy your cup of tea, even a glass of water, whatever it is, bit of light every day.
I totally agree. And it's the same philosophy. I'm not sure what process you learned, you used. In my case, it was, mindset techniques using, journaling and meditation and things like that. It's because the more I did that and surrounded myself, with people that lifted me up and so forth, the bigger the light got. And then I discovered that it was a choice, right? I had to choose it, kind of thing, and to know the difference. A lot of times we don't know the difference because we're being ruled by the hormones, by the physical, instead of letting the brain take over, that kind of thing. So, and we all make our own discoveries during our own journeys, right? And so you got to figure out what moment that is, or what it is that opens that light for you, like you say, and then just build and build and build and build on it.
Yes, I think it also, the other thing that for me was difficult to understand is, our parents tell us to brush our teeth every, like from the age of whatever, beginning, and it's a habit, and they didn't have to tell us once. And often we lied because we didn't want to even brush our teeth, right? So over time, eventually now we're still doing it. But with our brain, no one told us how to look after our brain. No one told us this is a good habits of life, So it's like, and people told us how to eat properly. So we know that even if we eat donuts, that we shouldn't be eating donuts all the time. But with our brain, it's like we don't know. So we'll be thinking, oh, I do affirmations in the morning, and the rest of the day you're doom scrolling, watching the news or whatever. And then you're wondering, like, it would be a bit like,
Why hasn't my life changed? Yeah.
that's right. It's like you eat salad in the morning and donuts throughout the day, and you're like, why am I putting on weight? Because we don't know. And I mean, that was my realization, that no one told us how to do this, like brushing our teeth, but also and acknowledging that the difficulty of doing that every day. Because imagine, like, brushing our teeth is a small thing, but it went on years, for us to get a habit. And I started late, this habit of being healthy with my mind. So restating the brain. And I think also it's every day, and it's like exercising, and it will take a while. It doesn't take just 21 days and then after that it's done. We have to, like you said, we have to repeat and whatever. So it's okay. We can, it's okay that you feel like, oh my God, why am I still thinking negative, or why am I falling down? Yeah, you do, because sometimes the same way you want donuts, sometimes you might be doom scrolling one day. It's okay, but that's what I learned as well, and removing the shame from that as well, because I had a lot of shame around like not looking after my brain properly or the thinking positive, and because I didn't know. I mean, you obviously learned that before me, but for me it was late learning about this, sadly, and but so yeah.
And I admittedly, because I was so absorbed in what was going on in my life and everything, like I didn't even think to Google stuff and research, you know, well, because I didn't know. I don't also didn't know that I should be looking. You know what I mean? Like there were some things, symptoms, that I know now are symptoms that were going on that I had no idea were attributed to this, so it didn't dawn on me to ask if it was, you know what I mean? Like, other than your typical hot flashes, weight gain, things, things like that, right? But, I was having electric shock, I had vertigo for
Or the
like 8
skin going
months.
a bit like this,
Yeah, yeah, there was the, like 33, just some was very, very weird that, um some might even arguably say, "Oh, that didn't have anything to do with it." Well, I think it does because, the experts now are saying they're finding, that there are more and more things that relate. And then when I did finally put it all together and then start to look it up, it's like, "Oh my god, yes, that was a menopause symptom or it's related or whatever." We just need to kinda remember that not to get too absorbed in it, like I did because, you lose yourself. You lose yourself and you just it's a slippery slope. It really is. Thank you so much. You were so lovely, and I look forward to just speaking with you again on, off podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So with that, I will say thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's episode of the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast. Again, and if any of this resonates with you, please remember to like and subscribe below. I am your host, the Menopause Queen, Lisa R. Triggs. As always, remember, please self-love first. Thank you so much. Bye for now.